Hello, friends, and welcome to the space where we discuss business, landscaping, beer, and everything in between. I'm your host, Heather Gerard from My Landscape Artist here in London, Ontario, Canada. And this is Season 2 of Hops and Hedges. Stay tuned after each episode for a message from our sponsor, ext.tech. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now crack open a cold one, and let's dig in. There we go. And now we are recording. With me today is special guest Stephanie LeBlanc from Toronto, and you are the head designer, and it is your business, right?
It is my business.
Master in the Field Landscape Design. So Stephanie, welcome.
It is. Thank you so much, Heather. I appreciate you having me.
No problem at all. I'm so glad that we've found each other. I think you were also at the Landscape Congress event, right?
I was, yes, I
Yeah.
was this is my second year actually attending, but this is my first year. I actually got to do some volunteer work.
Oh, nice.
And really helped me to do a little bit of networking, and I just loved getting more involved in the event, and just really furthers that sense of community I think that there is in this industry.
Absolutely. And so what was before we're gonna have lots that we're going to dig into, but what was your own personal highlight of Congress?
Oh gosh, and I apologize. My dog is all
That's
of a sudden
right.
deciding to make some noise.
Our fur babies like to talk too. Oh yeah, cheers. We're going to talk about beer too. So not everybody can see us. Some people are just listening, but we do both have a beer, which we will get into. But yes, what is your highlight of Congress or something memorable?
Yes, I think my highlight was the actual practical assignment that we did with Danae.
Yes, at the designers conference.
At the designers conference, yes. I ended up sitting at a table with complete strangers because the group of ladies that I would normally sit with, I couldn't find them when I walked in. And so I loved that exchange of information, and just a building of a whole new, it was like 8 people now that never knew each other. And all of a sudden we're exchanging business cards and things like that. And then actually at Congress, I took a day and I walked the show. I think the thing I really love, because I'm, I guess, a newer designer, I love to really dig in, and I'm learning and trying to get more into like paving materials.
Okay.
So I really want to, I think I admire very unique sort of patterns and colorways and things. So I'm always on the lookout for just something that's going to add that sense of uniqueness into my designs.
Yep, absolutely. And it's so funny because I too, when I walk the trade floor, I'm always I want to say pleasantly distracted by plants, but that's because I'm a total plant nerd. So I automatically are drawn to the green booths. But I do always look forward to seeing what new stuff people are coming out with.
Oh,
so for paving wise,
sure.
Right?
And I always, so one of the nurseries that the nursery I tend to work with the most is NVK.
Yep.
So I always love to sort of walk through their booth, and I love the smell of it. The other booth that I love, this is the second year I've been there and I've gone through, is how do you pronounce it?
Bienenstock.
Bienenstock.
I think so. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, I don't know if I will ever have a project where I can implement their product into like maybe a play area for a family.
Yeah.
Living in Toronto, our houses are smaller and our lots are smaller, so it doesn't necessarily lend to, devoting a whole lot of space to a play area for kids. But you walk in and just the smell of the wood and the mulch, and you start climbing on different logs and things like that, and you really start to forget where you are. It's
so experiential.
Yes,
like it's instead of slides made out of plastic, or like these are tangible materials that we can have on some of our job sites anyway. So instead of trekking them off, we can actually refurbish them and create these really, really cool interactive spaces.
Yeah, I love that.
Their booth has been one of my favorites for the last few years. So, and knock on wood, Adam said he's going to come on the podcast. So stay
Ooh.
tuned. We're going to pick his brain at some point. So, for those who are tuning in and who aren't familiar with yourself, Stephanie, or your company, Master in the Field Landscape Design, can you tell us a little bit about your design experience and what is it that you do? Do you have a niche or a specialty?
Sure. So just a little, I guess, backstory. This is a second career for me. My original degree is actually in fine arts and English a very long time ago. And just before the pandemic, I was just really longing for being creative again. Um, I've worked in sales for the better part of the rest of my career. Which happened to a lot of people that sort of had just general arts degrees at the time when I went to university. So I was really longing for that. And as I was searching for something, I came across the landscape design program at Ryerson, which is now Metropolitan University. It actually doesn't exist anymore in the form
Oh, okay.
as when I took it. But I also have been gardening in my own gardens in my own homes for years. And so I signed up and I really wasn't sure where it was going to take me, but then the pandemic hit and I just kind of went full steam ahead and I did 2 years straight. So I did 6 courses back to back
Yep.
and graduated from that program. In fact, my convocation was still virtual when I did graduate. But I did start designing sort of on the side while I was in school, alongside another family business that I work on. And about 2 years ago was when I really decided to formalize my business practice. So I built a website and had branding work done and opened a proper bank account and
Yep.
made it wasn't necessarily just a side hustle anymore, something to do for fun. So as I'm sort of going along, I'm at this intersection where my family business is, it's with my dad and he's getting ready to retire. So at sort of this moment where I'm taking a leap now, where this will be my 100% work for me. And so I am just loving it. I love working with different clients. In terms of a specific style that I might have, I think I look to the arts and crafts movement, which is sort of late 1800s, early 1900s. But what I really love about that is how they honor the practice of using really high quality materials, things that are handcrafted. I love the form and sort of the intimate room spaces that came from that, moving landscapes closer to homes. At that time when people had large estates, let's say in the
Yeah.
UK, right? You had sort of all kinds of on acres of property. But my business operates in Toronto. So, I try and sort of import some of those aspects into my own design style. So I really like to give it a lot of form with trees and hedges and shrubs. I don't necessarily go right into sort of the typical or classic English garden for like a perennial border. I think realistically, just for today's day and age, people really are busy and they want something that's simplistic, but I love to mass like different perennials. I don't spend a lot of time on annuals. If I do, I sort of relegate them to pots.
Yep.
Personally, I really like to get as much texture and color into the landscape with all of those different elements.
Awesome. And how exciting is that? Like you are 2 years in business. So congratulations to you. Like that is
Thank you.
huge. Like to make that leap because that's a really scary thing to do.
It is,
Like,
I will say, I mean, I'm going to give myself away, but I'm at my mid-age point. And it really wasn't something I was expecting to do at this stage in my life to sort of start anew. But, when I'm aimlessly scrolling on Instagram and I see like those masterclass ads that come up. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but the one came up a while ago and it was Martha Stewart. talking about her own business. And she said, I started my business when I was 50. And I thought, okay, well,
Martha Stewart can do it. Well, by George, I
honestly,
can do it.
I,
Absolutely.
so I was somewhat inspired by that. It was a huge leap of faith. I feel like in hindsight, it was pretty brave to dive in and do that. Really something for myself that I am passionate about. I love being outside. I love being in people's gardens. And for me, in a similar way that, somebody might come into your house as an interior designer and be
Mhm.
able to sort of plot and plan out the inside of your home. I love to be able to walk into a space and for some reason in my brain, like three-dimensionally, just a landscape appears in my mind,
Yeah.
which is, I think, a really unique thing that designers are able to do, right? Is to take something that's totally two-dimensional
Yep.
in a sense and bring it to life. If you add a tree or a shrub or a mass of flowers, how that gives a space a totally different feel
Yeah.
and a different experience for the homeowner.
Nailed it. And it's so funny when you talk about just how unique that is that you can take something 2D and make it 3D. I, for the longest time, didn't realize that some people can't see things in their minds that aren't there. Right. And as designers, we do that. We walk into a client's garden that they've invited us into, and all they see is the problems. They see the overwhelm, they see the mess. And we walk in, and right away, it's not oh gosh, that's so messy. That's not our first thought. It's like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what tree needs to go there.
Yes.
And over here, we're going to do a little water feature and a bubbling urn, and that's where the fire bowl is going to go. And the client is just like, wait, what?
But we
Right. So
see
it's our
the
job to communicate with them. And
potential.
yeah, absolutely. And I love that that positive outlook that designers have because we don't see the now. We don't see all the turmoil that the space has been through. We see the potential of what it can be. And I think that's not a bad way to live your life.
Well, it's interesting because at Congress, at the Designers Day, you'll remember that, the discussion came up around designers and really because we come in at the very beginning stage of a project, that we really are the visionaries to
Mm-hmm.
bring something to life. And it's so important to have somebody that has the knowledge that we do because, we do touch on learning about construction. We learn about plants. We learn about soil. We learn
Mm-hmm.
about so many different aspects to bring the whole project together, that having somebody like us sort of to hold your hand is so important, I think, because problems can go wrong
Yeah.
um, in hiring. Maybe I'm not here to say anything negative about contractors, but not starting with a designer first and then hiring a contractor on, having somebody who is educated and skilled um, in that way is so important to sort of
Absolutely.
guide the project along, I think.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the general public don't necessarily know kind of what the process is, right? So a lot of people, they might want a pool. So what they do is they hire a pool installer without the design or without the plan, right? It is so important. I couldn't stress that enough. It's something you put on your interview questionnaire, and I absolutely agree with you. It is so much easier to revise a plan on paper than it is to revise a patio once you've already put the base material down. Like,
Well, I have to say, and I'm not going to name any names, but last year I was brought in to sort of just get some general structure on paper for a client who had gone ahead and instead of hiring a designer from the beginning, just hired the pool company.
oh
And
man,
it's a concrete pool
yep. Once it's
and
in, it's in. There's no
it's
changing it.
just very expensive.
Oof.
And there were all kinds of problems. And so I feel like, maybe some designers can do this where, you create your design and the client loves it and they sign off on it and you hand it to a contractor and that designer can just walk away and move on to the next. I'm not at all like that. I'm really, maybe that will come with more experience over time, but I really like to see things through from the very beginning to the very end. I mean,
Yep.
when I walk off a project, I leave clients with a maintenance plan. So like plant by plant, if you are going to be maintaining your garden, this is how you have to do it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this is like every 3 years, you're going to need to add some compost, all those details right through to the very end. I just, maybe that's me being a control freak,
Hey,
but
you know what? You be you. And I will say that is also another skill. And maybe I'm a little biased because I also do that. Right. So that is that us as designers, we are professional hat changers. We can wear so many hats. And people like you and I, we are also the project manager. So if we are the first point of contact, we're coming up with the plan, we're selecting the materials, but then we're also selecting the contractor who's best suited for the style of job or type of job being done. We're working with them so that the contractor isn't overwhelming the client. We're taking that overwhelm away, right?
yes,
Because they don't need to do any of that. And then any of those problems that might happen on site, because they do, why would we stress out a client when the problem can be fixed, right? Like there's no sense the contractor saying, oh, so we just found an SUV buried in your backyard, which I've heard this story before, right? We're installing a pool and they go to excavate and there's a car buried in their backyard. I think it's better that people like you and I, we have a certain je ne sais quoi, right? Conversing and working with clients than some contractors do. So that is a skill. That is not a problem.
it's
Yeah. No,
well, and
you toot that horn of yours.
I
Yeah.
I will. Well, you know, I think that sometimes it's like you just don't know what you don't know, right? So it's like this is the way I work. Does everybody work like this?
Yeah.
Do some people work like this? Maybe it is just me, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that like, you know, that imposter syndrome
Very
comes into play,
prevalent.
right? Because it's like, well, should I stick my neck out? Should I not? You know, sometimes I see those videos where it's like you have your crew on site working, and then it's like they all look up. Oh, crap, the designer's here. You know,
Right.
and they're all like, okay, gotta get to work now.
Yeah. It's too funny. And it's interesting to me how you mentioned imposter syndrome because you started your business, you mentioned around 2 years ago. I
Yeah,
started mine in 2020 during the pandemic.
during the pandemic.
But, and it's so funny because this is a topic that comes up often on this podcast is that imposter syndrome, it is very real. It is very prevalent. And I've had some great guests on the show. One that comes to mind is Lindsay Drake. Lindsay Drake Nightingale. She came on the show and she was talking about imposter syndrome. And she says it doesn't really go away, but the voice gets a little quieter with time. There's no, we just kind of have to live with it and push through it. But after you look back and you're like, wow, I've been doing this for 20 years, that imposter syndrome voice becomes a little smaller, but it's still there.
Well, I think one of the keys to maybe sort of quieting that voice down is just knowledge, right? Is really making sure as much as possible that you're just an expert in your space. I mean, I don't think you can necessarily know every single thing,
Mm-hmm.
but really to have a great base. So for me, it just means like continuing to take courses, and just in continuing to inform yourself, like, oh, I'm just curious about that. If I had done this on a project, you know, how would that have needed to be executed? And to
Yep.
really, you know, make sure, especially when you're coming on a job site and then you're speaking to a contractor, that, you know, you go on and they know, you know,
Right.
right? So they can't talk circles around you. But I think that that's something that comes with knowledge and it comes with experience. It's,
Yep.
you know, it's one of the things, no matter, I think how many courses, let's say you take in school,
Mm-hmm.
it never equates necessarily to like starting to get onto job sites and starting to learn. I have one particular, he's a contractor that's in my area, and he has a larger design build firm. And we've just connected, and, he's been so helpful with like, okay, if I have projects where I'm going to be doing X, Y, or Z, I want you to come on the job site and I want you to see, because, you know, part of his job, he's been in this industry for over 25 years. Now he's ready to teach people so that the industry persists with a really strong knowledge base.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible how they do that? Like in this profession, we are seeing people who have been doing this for years, and they have arms wide open to a lot of us newer people who are coming in saying, let me teach you. Let me show you so that we can perpetuate this knowledge base and carry it on, sort of grandfathering this information. It's extraordinary.
Well, from that particular person, what seems to have occurred is during the pandemic, you had people that were maybe do-it-yourselfers, or they had done one or two small projects, and they were now sort of coming out of the woodwork and sort of starting companies, but they're not necessarily really strong at what they do. So I think you have somebody like this person who really wants to sort of amplify knowledge for especially, I guess, from his perspective on the contractor side, so that trades, are going out and, working to code and doing things the right way so that clients are happy and landscapes last for a long period of time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I definitely think it's unique in this industry, at least from what I've found, is just being able to sort of connect with people and to have people that are just willing to lend a hand, get on the phone and do a Zoom like this to
Mm-hmm.
talk and to share knowledge and information.
Yeah, I am definitely the beneficiary of some extraordinary quality time with a number of professionals in our profession, and especially during COVID, because when I personally just suddenly was unemployed, right? Like a lot of people were, and
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be a landscape manager forever. Like I loved what I did. I thought I was going to retire from there, and then I really started thinking, everybody tells me that I'm not a good employee. Maybe that's because I'm a better entrepreneur than an employee. And it took me some time to really wrap my head around that. But one of the things that I did during the pandemic, I was unemployed. We were shut down at the time, the whole profession. And I emailed a number of, I would say, some big names in our field. And I just said, you know what? You don't even know me, but I'm a Landscape Ontario member and I'm considering starting my own business. Could I, either buy an hour of your time, or would you be willing to Zoom with me for an hour just so I could pick your brain? And I cannot believe, I don't think I had a single person turn me down. Like, and these people that I reached out to, they're still my mentors to this day. And I admire so many of them. But I couldn't believe that, talk about imposter syndrome again. Like little old me, it's like, who am I to reach out to these people? Like these people have multi-million-dollar businesses. And I'm thinking about starting a small design firm. And they all were willing, and they all spent an hour or more just talking with me about how they started. And it's kind of I kind of get to do that now on this podcast, which is just occurring to me now in this moment, actually, which is so cool, just to hear everybody's origin stories, and hopefully we can inspire some more people to hop in on what it is that we do. So,
Well, and I think that that's exactly what, every single time you're speaking to somebody, you're doing exactly that. And it really is like, if somebody was there to lend you a hand or lend you an ear, right back at you, right? You're doing the exact same thing. So I think perpetuating that is just what makes this industry so amazing, so positive. I mean, just the general work that we do, right, is improving the environment, improving, a place for wildlife, beauty, so many different things from that angle. But it is very unique to this industry, I will say, coming from the background that I have come from. And I hired a designer actually. So 2 houses ago, I hired a designer to work on my own house. And I don't know if you remember, but there used to be a nursery around, it was called Plant World.
Hmm.
In my area, no, in my area anyways, like that was the kind of the nursery to go to.
Okay.
And this person, her name is Janet, and I met her there and we hired her to do a design.
Yep.
And we just had sort of stayed in touch. She was in the area, so I would run into her sometimes. And then once I graduated and had sort of started working, I reached out to her and I just said, like, listen, this is my situation. And she literally, it was almost like she was just opening up her Rolodex,
Wow.
for those that remember that, the Rolodex system.
Hey, look, I look young, but I remember a Rolodex. It was my dad's, but I know what it is.
Um, and so through her, I met a group of women, one of them named Joanne Shaw. I think you've had her on your podcast.
Yeah.
And she was just, it was the same situation. Like I said, could I have 15 minutes of your time? And that turned into an hour. And then she invited me into this sort of networking group that she had established. And just through her and then through events, I've come to have a great mentor in Beth Edney,
Yeah.
who is just a wonderful example of somebody who is not only a designer, but also is she volunteers, she's giving back to the industry, she's a teacher. She
Hmm.
really has been so wonderful. And then just through her, I met, other people. And so I just feel really blessed. I'll knock on knock on wood.
Yeah, I
I
hear
just
you.
feel really blessed from that perspective. So honestly, I feel like if I fail, it's really is just my own fault, you know?
Careful. Those are some strong words. I don't know about fault. I don't know. I don't know about that one. We're gonna shelf that one for a second.
Okay.
So I see, and again, most people are just listening to the podcast,
Um,
right? So we do have a video, but I do see that you have a beer. So I'm
I
wondering,
do.
what are you drinking?
So I think I said I don't actually normally drink. I actually have rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease. And what I found is that beer just really causes a lot of inflammation in my body. Now,
Oh
having said
no,
that, I do love it. I
that's
do
a
love it.
tough one.
I know it really is. And wine is normally my go-to. A good Cabernet Sauvignon from
Okay.
California. But this one is from Parsons Brewery.
Okay.
So this is called, I think it's called their Westy Ale.
Parsons
Um,
Westy Ale.
Yeah, and they are in Prince Edward County, which is a place that my husband and I and our family, we would like to go to for weekend getaways and rent a cottage and go. I don't know if you've ever been to that area, but there are just amazing farms there, and it's really like farm to table sort of experience, a lot of wineries, and a lot more breweries, microbreweries popping up, great
Okay.
restaurants. And if you've never been to Sandbanks, it's just a beautiful beach area. They're like bluffs. It's
Yep.
really pretty. The beach is beautiful and it's calm and it's nice soft sand. It's really a great
Okay.
area that our families enjoyed. Anyways, that's where this beer is from, and it's called Parsons. And
Parsons.
they, I don't think you can buy their beer at the LCBO, but you can order from them.
Okay. I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna check out the Sandbakes place too. I don't know if I've mentioned on the show before or not, but I have a little bit of an addiction slash problem with collecting rocks.
Oh,
So actually, I don't even know if you can see in the video or not, but underneath my table, I've got like 8 boxes,
oh yes,
and they're
yes.
all polished rocks at different stages because my husband gifted me a rock tumbler. Like seriously, it's an addiction. I can't stop. I have caught myself in a client's driveway, like gravel driveway, picking up rocks before. Like I have a problem. I need
I
to
was
see a
gonna say I
professional.
have literally never heard of somebody with this obsession.
I'm obsessed. Yeah.
Well, I think you maybe need somewhere to do a presentation of your collection.
I'm I have so many fun ideas of how I'm going to finally present this collection. I still don't know what I'm going to do, but I think where the obsession comes from, and I have very early memories of picking up rocks, like at the beach or anytime we travel, going to Florida with my parents. I remember getting rocks or pieces of coral, right, at the fish
Yes.
store, souvenir shop or whatever, semi-precious gemstones and crystals and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't think I ever grew out of it, you know?
I think you
And
need a podcast about
just on
rock.
rocks. Is this my cue to Heather? Move on. Stop talking about rocks. Let's talk about beer. So I'm actually drinking an Innocent Gun. So Innocent Gun is from across the pond, but here in Canada, in Toronto, actually, we have a license agreement between the brew house in Edinburgh and Toronto. So this is
Okay.
actually brewed in Toronto, but it's Innocent Gun, and it's been matured for spiciness in a Caribbean rum cask.
Ooh.
It's quite nice.
I
So
mean, just that alone makes it sound like you need to drink it.
yeah, it was one of those days where it's like, well, I like beer, but I also like rum. This is where the two come together, and it's just a beautiful thing.
It's funny because at around this time I would normally be having my afternoon coffee.
Yep.
I have an espresso machine, which makes it way too easy to just like put the capsule in and press the button.
Yep.
So what I probably should have done is gotten something that was like a combo of coffee and beer.
Yep. There are a few out there. I know
Yes.
that there's a few stouts. Recently, my husband and I tried something called creme brulee. Brulee is in Brew. Creme brulee, like a beer. It was a little sweet for me. It was a dessert. But anyway, cheers to you, Stephanie. Thanks for coming on the
Cheers,
show.
cheers to you,
Uh,
Heather.
it's funny how, you get people and sometimes you just click. And so I feel like I'm so looking forward to already getting to know you better and more after this episode, because
I
we've
agree.
only met today for the first time, virtually, I guess. But what you're doing and how you talk about design and working with contractors, I feel like we have so much in common. And I'm sure that we'll be picking each other's brains. Like in the
I agree.
summer, I can imagine a job's gonna come up and I'm gonna be like, oh, Stephanie might know something about this. I'm gonna call her up
Phone
and
a
see what she,
friend for sure.
yeah.
I'd
I
be
need to
happy
call a
to.
friend. I need to call
Yeah.
a friend. And it's so funny how we do that, right? Because as designers, we're not just I would say a generalization is we don't just draw pictures. It's so much more than that. We are the connectors. We connect the contractors to the homeowners. We connect the existing garden to the potential of what it can be. We're connecting the nursery to the contractor to get the plants there on time. Like there's so many juggling that we do.
Well, and I think one of the big things is we're problem solvers, because that's really like
Mm-hmm.
when you come into a landscape and the client says, "Well, here's my laundry list of all the things I'm hoping for, wishing for." I mean, it really is your job to it's a problem to solve, right? Okay, how are
Yep.
we going to make this happen? And then, we come up with something that they love, and okay, we're going to make this happen. How do we make this happen?
Right.
And then you go along in the process and there's a problem. Okay, how do we solve this,
Yep.
solve this problem so we can move
Pivot. Pivot.
on?
Have you seen that episode of Friends where
Yes.
they're trying to move the couch up the stairwell? I think of that so many times. I'm on a job site, right? And it's not that you didn't plan for it. There are some things that you just can't plan for, like an SUV buried in somebody's backyard,
How would you
right?
know that?
Or I remember one job that I actually did. We had somebody had reached out to us wanting a design for their front yard. They didn't want any sod. They wanted to get rid of all the grass. It was a small front lawn, and they wanted it to be all garden with mulched pathways. Beautiful. Let's
I
get rid of
love
the
that.
grass.
I
Like I'm
I'm
all
all
for
about
getting rid
that.
of the grass.
All about that.
And we did this very involved plan, and we got the locates. All the locates came back. We knew where the gas was. We knew where the hydro was. We knew where the water was. Everything looked good. We stick a shovel in the ground, and 6 inches under the turf in the front lawn, we hit concrete. So the previous owner of the house had actually covered the entire front lawn as a parking spot. 100% of the frontage was a concrete pad. So they could park probably 5 cars there. It's against the bylaw, or at least it's against the bylaw now. So who knows when this is done? But the concrete doesn't show up on the locates. We had no idea.
Oh, well, and also, I mean, that's a quick fix, right? To, oh, shoot, now I have to abide by a bylaw, maybe, or
Yep.
I'm selling my house, so I guess I better get used or better get
That was
this
somebody with a
out of
pickup
here.
truck.
And
And it's like,
as
we're just going
opposed
to cover it,
to
put some sod down. Nobody will know.
breaking it up and taking it away.
Yeah. So long story short, we did not break it up and take it away. It was not in the budget,
Oh
right?
no.
So we ended up scraping off an area and making a patio, and then had raised planters because we could mulch on top of concrete, but it would just wash away. Like
Yeah,
it was definitely a very memorable job for me personally.
that, that's too bad.
Oh, yeah, it breaks my heart. Couple questions for you before we wrap up here. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and there's so many things here, but talking about software, one of the things that you mentioned actually was Dynascape and SketchUp, which
Yes.
is really interesting to me because I find a lot of people are one or the other, but I'm also a Dynascape SketchUp person. Like I don't have a one thing, and then I also do hand renders as well. But
Okay.
what for you, what was it like in school at Ryerson? Were you introduced to either SketchUp or
Yes. So
Dynascape?
I was only familiar with SketchUp to begin with because Ryerson did have a license to SketchUp, and um, mostly what we used in school was their 2D plugin, which was layout.
Yep.
So that's really what in through my school days. And then when I started designing afterwards, I was able to hold on to that license for a while. So that was good because it was free.
They know what they're doing. That's how they hook us,
Yes.
right?
And maybe for a year I paid for a license. And then I came across as I sort of became indoctrinated into this group of designers,
Mhm.
um, I learned about Dynascape. And in fact, one of my mentors recommended to me, oh, you should watch this panel discussion Dynascape is having. And that's where uh, Beth Edney was the moderator,
Mhm.
and Joanne was on the panel, and then there were 3 designers from the US as well. And so as I was listening to them and I was getting really inspired, and they all use Dynascape because it's brought to you by Dynascape. And it
Mhm.
was after then that I thought, well, I think this is a tool that can better because doing 2D drawings in layout, it's very flat. You know,
Yep.
you're using like squares and circles.
Yep.
There isn't a lot of texture brought in your modeling. So switching over to Dynascape, it was a little bit of a learning curve.
I'd say.
But once I kind of got the hang of it, it just became easier. And then I learned how to render in color in Dynascape. And my project for this year, because I'm sort of going into my third, real season, let's say, of business, one of the things that I'm doing this year is to try and learn. So the SketchUp or Dynascape, I should say, has a plugin for 3D,
Mhm.
and that connects with SketchUp. And so that's something that I apparently have the capability on my computer to do, because
Nice.
that was a big thing, right? Like, do I have to buy new technology now?
Right.
So that I can do, and it will be something that I'm learning this year. And I do find that, I think it's something that, if it's not too involved of a project, you can add a little bit more in terms of price onto your quote, your design
Mhm.
quote, and include that. I think it's helpful for some people who really, when you meet them, you know they're not going to be able to visualize.
Absolutely. 3D is a
Uh,
game changer for that kind
yeah,
of client, right?
But on bigger projects, obviously 3D becomes much more involved. But I do think, the way the industry is moving, it's offered by so many different, especially once you get into sort of the larger design build firms, they're doing
Mm-hmm.
that almost automatically in their
Yep.
projects. So I feel like, that's one level of competition I have in my marketplace. So it's something I have to be able to at least be adept at offering,
Yep.
or I have to have the money to pay somebody to do it for me.
Right.
Um, so we'll see how that plays out this year, but that's on my to-do list for
Awesome.
amongst other things
Yeah.
um, to do for this year. So the other thing is I am starting to study for the CLD exam.
Congratulations. That's another big step.
Thank you. Yes, I'm really excited. And I really felt when I finished school, one of the things I did was just worked my tail off to maintain a certain GPA. And I thought, well, when I graduate, because I'm not really sure what I'm doing with this in the end, I know that it's allowing me to be really creative and learn something new, but what am I doing in the end? So just having higher marks or higher GPA just opened the door if I wanted to go back to school from there
Yep.
and do a master's in landscape architecture. So still not decided on that, but at least the CLD sort of bridges that between the two,
Yep.
and I think is another offering to make me unique, or to make any designer really unique and stand out. Because when you're working for yourself versus you're somebody that's specifically working for another company, what are all the things that you can do to set yourself apart, right?
Absolutely. Because nobody else is going to toot your horn, right? So you got to
No,
toot your own horn. So what can I put
no,
in my toolbox that I can toot about? Right? Absolutely. And the CLD, so if anybody's listening and they're not familiar with the term, so CLD means Certified Landscape Designer. It's a certification that we can get through the CNLA and Landscape Ontario here in Ontario. But where the whole kind of profession really is leaning towards more of a red seal. So similar of what you would have in the States, um, where we're looking for kind of that visibility and that uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Recognition, right? That
yeah,
we're not somebody with a notepad and we're not just doing sketches out of thin air. It's we're thinking about so many things um, that go beyond the surface, right? Which is a whole
sure.
other episode of the podcast. Oh my gosh, sometimes you get into water stuff and it's like, well, this whole project just changed because you are on top of a underground river.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's always fun.
Well, I think something like that, it helps to sort of like legitimize in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And add more credibility to sort of your offering out in the marketplace. So it's a rigorous process. So I think it's something definitely like, I don't know necessarily that clients, like if they saw that on your business card, if they would say, what is that? Or that they would know what that is,
Yep.
CLD. But I think it's definitely something when you are meeting clients to say, I do have this certification, and this
Yep.
is what it means, and this is what it means for you in terms of
Absolutely.
hiring me for your project.
Well, and I think too, having that CLD stamp. So I don't currently have mine. They're looking or they're in the process of kind of changing, or they have changed the process for applying. And now they have something, I want to call it legendary, but that's not the right word, where if you have 12 years of experience, you can do a certain written exam. And this is my 12th year. So since I started. So I'm hoping to maybe get my CLD stamp this year or next year. But
That would be amazing. I think it's
yeah,
sort of like a grandfathering almost process, right? Because in your years of experience,
yeah.
you've built up sort of when you're studying for the exam, I want to say it's 8 chapters. And just trying to remember. Anyways, but chapter by chapter, it really does dive into you know, right straight from like, communication, dealing with clients, all the way to like construction
Mm-hmm.
and plants. So there's no knowledge that you really have to, know that goes above and beyond sort of if you were just like generally somebody who was at home and thought, well, I think I know how to design. I think I'm going to design, right?
Yep.
So really like I said, sort of legitimizing your knowledge base,
Yep.
but you also build that over the time span of, your portfolio. So yeah,
Absolutely.
if it's
Well, and even
been,
for me as a homeowner, like if I'm hiring a contractor, I want to see what stamps you got. I might
yes,
not understand what those stamps mean. I don't know what stamps I'm looking for, but if I see a couple, I'm more than likely going to be like, okay, this isn't somebody who just decided they would try this for fun, right? This is somebody who's
exactly.
serious about knowing the profession and how to do things properly. So we are running a little bit long today, but that's just because I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation. But I do want to end with I always love knowing what people are reading or a book that has really changed your perspective or inspired you. And you mentioned the book Color Schemes for the Flower Garden.
Yes. So this is an old, this is so one of the I guess I'll call her a garden designer because that's what she called herself, that I really admire is from when we go back to sort of what I said I was influenced by, but her name is Gertrude Jekyll.
Oh, Gertrude. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just really love a lot of the things that she stood for in a time where, women weren't doing that kind of work.
Nope.
She really helped to legitimize landscape design. And she really brought sort of the art and the science together in her career. So this is a newer, I have it here. This is
Oh,
a
you have it
newer,
right there. Oh, that's beautiful.
and it's not widely
Okay.
available. This was a
Challenge accepted. I will
secondhand copy.
hunt one down.
One other that I'll just very quickly that I love because I really like their design sensibility. So this is kind of a coffee table book, but this
Yep.
is it's called the Landscape of Home. So Ed Hollander, or Ed Hollander is his name, and he has a landscape design firm in the U.S. Um, and he is also a landscape architect, and I just really love the projects they work on and their design sensibility. And the
Yes.
very, very latest, which has nothing to do with gardening at all,
Okay.
sorry,
No, I love this.
it's called Be Ready When the Luck Happens.
Be
This
ready
is
when the luck.
Ina Garden. You can't pronounce her name. Ina Garden. She has been in the food industry for a very long time. She's the Barefoot Contessa. And I am a self-proclaimed foodie as well. I love to cook. It's one of my other passions that I have. But really
Oh, more
what
for us to talk about next time.
this book is really about, when an opportunity presents itself, to really just be ready to jump in and go for it. No matter if you think, you don't know enough, or you're not smart enough, just to go for it, and you're learning along the way. And eventually you're going to get really good at it.
I love that. I am adding that to my book list. So
Oh,
thank you so much. What a
you're
great way to
welcome.
end an episode. Stephanie, it's
Thank
been really great getting to know you a little bit more and hearing
you
about
as
your
well.
business. We
Thank you.
will, so in the description of this podcast episode, as well as eventually on my website, as I slowly populate the blog posts, your information will all be there. So people should have no problem looking you up and finding you.
Okay. Well, I would love that. I'm open for business. So
Excellent. So once again, this is
awesome.
Stephanie LeBlanc from Master in the Field Landscape Design in Toronto, Ontario. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'm sure I'll see you around.
Indeed, you will, Heather.
Perfect. Cheers. That concludes this week's episode, hosted by me, Heather Gerard at My Landscape Artist. Now, before you go, here's some info about our sponsor, ext.tech. In today's fast-paced world, your landscaping business needs modern solutions to keep up with the change. That's where EXT comes in. EXT is revolutionizing the way you manage projects and streamlines your landscaping, snow removal, and construction operations. Instead of juggling 5 different software packages, endless spreadsheets, losing track of leads, and missing out on potential sales, you could be leveraging AI job routing, client management, and financial insights with a modern mobile app that employees love to use. With EXT's flat rate pricing, you'll never be caught off guard. If you're ready to revolutionize and grow your landscaping business, Visit ext.tech today to learn more. And for additional savings, use the code HOPS10 at checkout, or just tell them that Heather sent you. See you next week for another episode of Hops and Hedges.